Now that PC building is becoming easier, it's time to challenge myself with a build like this. And to be clear, I said easier, definitely not cheaper. The price of PC building is atrocious right now in mid-2026, and the price to performance of these build guide videos is only getting worse and worse. The only thing we have going for us right now is that at least parts are available. Knock on wood. So the challenge today is $1,000, AM5, and white aesthetics. That is definitely not a popular combination these days because we know white parts usually cost a bit more, and the AM5 means we'll be paying DDR5 prices. But if that sounds interesting, then I'm gonna show you exactly how to do this for yourself. And real quickly, if you're new around here, my name is Zach, and showing you how to build gaming PCs during tough times is lately what I'm becoming all about. I make a ton of other build guide videos just like this one. There's a bunch of totally free PC building help on my website, like the GPU comparison charts, and I even sell pre-builts over there if you want to skip all this madness. I'm not trying to sway you one way or another, I just want to show you all of the options like this $1,000 AM5 white gaming PC for 2026. Let's go. Alright, now as much as I'd like to start with a Micro Center combo deal, I'm not gonna do that to you. Yes, I understand that most people don't live anywhere remotely close to one, but it's important to note that some of those deals could significantly increase your FPS per dollar value, so check there first if you have that option. We'll pretend that I don't for this video, but that didn't stop me from getting a combo. Over on Newegg, I stumbled on this MSI Pro B850M-P Wi-Fi motherboard paired up with a T-Force G50 512GB NVMe. They actually had the SSD labeled as a quote free gift, and the price of everything was $150. That's literally the price of just the motherboard on any given day, so they aren't kidding when they said it's a free gift. During all these shortages, we're gonna start to see more and more of these combos like this. That way they can sell multiple parts at once that they know we need. So keep your eyes out for deals like this when you're shopping. If you're copying this build at home, don't worry if you can't find this exact combination. In general, you're just looking for a B650M or B850M motherboard and whatever half a terabyte drive you can find. But if you can stretch your budget a bit over $1,000, then the first place that I would put more money is a 1 terabyte SSD. We'll definitely be feeling some pain with this limited amount of storage, but I'm not gonna say no to a free SSD, especially in this economy, so this is a fantastic start to our build. We'll now need an AM5 CPU to go into this motherboard, and with $1,000 to spend, honestly, we probably just need to go with whatever the cheapest option is available, or one of the cheapest. The Ryzen 5 7400F is the cheapest, and it's not a terrible choice, but usually it's right about the same price as the 7500F, which is a bit better. I actually found this 7500F sitting on Newegg for $119. That's a bit lower than what it usually sits at, so it was a no-brainer. With this pricing, we're getting pretty close to that true budget AM5 CPU that I've always been waiting for. I want to see one around $100 or even less, but that might be wishful thinking here in 2026. Regardless, the 7500F is still a fantastic, affordable option with its 6 cores and 12 threads that can boost up to 5 GHz. It can hang with better GPUs than what we're using today, but we'll talk about that a bit later. To cool the 7500F, we're going with one of my new favorites, the ID Cooling SE214XT White V2. They have this in both black and white, and I think they're the cleanest options under $20 right now. You can see here that our CPU temperatures were nice and chilly, not like the 7500F needs a beefy cooler though, so going with a budget option like this is perfectly acceptable. Next up on this motherboard, we're also plugging in some RAM, and I'm stealing a trick we used in my recent $750 build guide video. This is only a single 16 gig DDR5 stick clocked at 6000 MHz. It's a Patriot Viper Elite 5 stick with a CL30 rating, which is pretty good. But like we tested in that video, for a lot of games, we don't really need a second stick or 32 gigs of RAM for just gaming. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely games that utilize more than 16 gigs, but for most of them, this is still perfectly fine, especially when we'll be playing at slightly lower settings with this being an affordable build. If your total build budget is up around $1,500 or any higher, then I definitely get two 16 gig sticks for 32 total, or if you're using your PC for things like video editing, but this is an area where we can cut back a bit to give us some decent price to performance. Remember that I wouldn't have even entertained this idea before Ramageddon started, but here in mid-2026 with all the shortages, some of the places that we have to cut back are with 16 gig RAM sticks and half a terabyte 2TB SSDs. This is just what we have to do if we want to keep PC building without breaking the bank. We aren't getting anywhere close to the value we used to a year ago, but at least all these parts are available and not really difficult to find, at least here in the United States. I'd also definitely prefer to game on something like this instead of in the cloud with AI or data centers. Good builds are still possible, we just gotta temporarily deal with some drawbacks, hopefully temporarily. But let's continue through this parts list, and here's a part that really helps with our white aesthetic challenge. This is an Apevia Prestige 600 watt, which I'm definitely no stranger to. It's a budget Tier C rated model, which is fine for a build at this level, but usually I go with the black model, but don't forget that they came out with this white one maybe a year ago. This only costs $55, and for a Tier C unit, that's pretty solid, especially if you need white cables. This is a much cheaper option compared to going with a black power supply and adding $20 to $30 cable extensions. It's also easier to cable manage, but for a build like this, that's where the true challenge was. The case I used is this brand new Montech 10, and this has a lot of really cool features going for it, but cable management is the weak point, especially if you're using a non-modular power supply like I did. If you haven't seen this already, the Montech 10 is a smaller than usual micro ATX chassis. It's rocking metal airflow panels everywhere, which can be removed without tools, and I'm not gonna lie, I like the aesthetics of this one. More important than the aesthetics though are the configuration options, and like their tagline, built to adapt, suggests, you can do all sorts of things with this one. In total, there's 9 different PSU positions, 3 motherboard positions, and 7 different slot configs you can use for your GPU. That sounds kind of confusing, but basically you can move around these metal frames, brackets, and internals of the case so you can mount the parts however you want. I actually went with a pretty basic layout with the motherboard upright, GPU in the standard horizontal position, and the power supply up front. The problem is that there's no PSU basement or anything to really hide the cables, so that's why there's a rat's nest up here at the front. I did my best to zip tie these all down and try to keep the case's cables under control as well. This build is definitely not pretty from some certain angles, but good thing it's not a tempered glass side panel, so it really doesn't matter a whole lot. I did actually plan on using 2 sets of these 3 Thermalright TL-C12CW-S fans, so I could have 3 at the bottom for intake and 3 at the top for exhaust. But my motherboard has this additional power connector here at the bottom, which made that impossible. By the way, this is pretty weird, so I'll quickly explain it. This is an additional 8-pin power connector that we don't see all that often, and it's essentially for power stability for your PCIe expansion slots. For most configurations, especially for gaming like today, we don't even need to plug it in. But if you had a high power GPU and multiple other expansion cards in here, I guess it could help with the power situation at least a little bit. I'm honestly no expert when it comes to this because you just almost never see it, but don't worry if you do, because a build like this definitely doesn't need it. There's also no real downside to plugging it in though, other than it's just one more cable you gotta deal with, and in a case like this, that would be a little annoying. But yeah, this connector was sticking out just enough so I couldn't fit a 120mm fan right there. If I really wanted to, I could have just installed 2 fans towards the front here instead of 3, but I didn't want that unbalanced, awkward look. So now this ended up being a negative airflow setup because the 3 fans at the top and the 1 included tiny fan in the back are all set to exhaust. But we'll see in the benchmarking section that cooling still wasn't an issue. If anything, now the GPU has somewhat clear access to some fresh air that it's still intaking from underneath the case. And speaking of which, this GPU is a beautiful XFX Swift RX 9060 XT OC. After I bought all of the other parts inside this build, I had around $350 to spend on the GPU, and thankfully we do have a couple of options. An RTX 5060 is certainly one of them, but its direct competitor is this 8GB 9060 XT. Don't get me wrong, I definitely would have preferred to go with the 16GB model for better 1440p performance and future-proofing. I do think that would be possible with an AM4 and DDR4 system, but to squeeze one with AM5 and DDR5 is pretty much impossible right now with current pricing. Even with 8GB of VRAM though, this PC cranks out some serious price to performance, as we'll see here very soon. Before that though, here's what the full parts list is looking like, and nobody freak out, but I actually kept this one under our target budget, and I didn't have to utilize my local Micro Center. Now remember, I did find that really good Newegg combo or free gift deal, which probably won't be available by the time you're watching, but I do have a feeling you'll find something similar, and with PC building, you gotta be able to adapt and take advantage of the good deals that you currently see. I had no plans to use this specific motherboard or this specific SSD. Whenever I'm designing these build guides, I'm not specifically targeting any one product. Instead, I'm taking advantage of what the market offers me and putting all the options together as best as I can. I highly recommend you do the same. But now let's jump into these benchmarks real quickly, and we'll start with the new Forza Horizon 6 because we could actually crank up the settings to 1080p 1080p Ultra, and this looked really good. The 8GB 9060 XT squeezed out 76 frames per second, and if you wanted that higher, you could of course drop down to high or medium settings if you value higher FPS a bit more. Also brand new, here's Subnautica 2, and in 1080p medium, this PC cranked out a solid 79 average FPS. Fortnite in 1080p Pro got 238, Resident Evil 9 got 125 FPS in 1080p high. I love how these newer titles are looking good with higher FPS numbers. And here's Battlefield 6 in 1080p medium with 115 FPS. Here are the rest of the games that we tested, and once again, I'm just not really surprised that this 9060 XT can output this good of a gameplay experience. Yes, 8GB of VRAM isn't ideal in 2026, but like I said earlier, we gotta cut back in certain places, but as long as you use the right parts, you can still achieve decent FPS per dollar value. The full benchmarking video is over on the ZTT Extras channel, by the way, if you want to see a lot more. So yeah, I think it's safe to say that we tackled the challenge of a $1,000 white aesthetic AM5 build. This is no easy feat, but if you follow what I said and use the links down in the description, that's definitely possible during these tougher times of the PC hardware market. What's also incredibly difficult, but still possible, is a $750 AM5 build. The video for how to do that is up on the screen right now.